Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Joey, we got a great fishing report today that's all made possible with the support of our local businesses. This week's sponsor is your local Geico Insurance Office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on the boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you expect and can count on if you ever need to make a claim. But Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who helps you bring this fishing report each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al. We appreciate Ron Davis and those guys over at Geico. How are we doing today, Joe?
I'm doing great, man. We got some big news this week, and that's we're going to have some more snapper days. I'm really excited about that, not only from the fact that I'm going to go snapper fishing, but that's just so cool to see that the snapper check is working in real time. You know, I fished some up in Alaska. My in-laws spend the summer in Alaska, and they've got sonar on the rivers that count the fish going up the rivers. And when a certain number of salmon get past that sonar, they feel like they've gotten a good enough return, and they'll increase the limits. I always thought, I remember going there 10 years ago and seeing that and thinking, man, how cool is that they're like in real time, they're like, hey, 30,000 fish have been up the Kenai River or been up the Russian River. And I thought that there's no way we could do that in the Gulf, but Snapper Check has done it, really, and it's working. So let's bring on Scott Bannon today. We're going to talk to Scott and find out all the ins and outs of the extra 2 days we've got of snapper season coming up on Labor Day weekend. Scott, welcome back to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here.
Big news this week. Give us the ins and outs. We've got 2 more days of snapper season. What dates?
Sure. So it's going to be Saturday and Sunday, the last day of August, first day of September, which is Labor Day weekend. So after this season, we had a tough run of weather about mid-season, tropical storm/hurricane that went through the area. We lost 2 solid days for private anglers on that, but for most anglers, you lost the Friday as well. And we've had some other high wind days where effort wasn't as good. People in smaller boats made the right decisions and did not go out because it's not safe. And so we're very proud of the decisions that people made. So that led to some reduced effort and some reduced catches. So we had the opportunity to add some days. The 1st through the 5th with amberjack, I think, was a great opportunity for anglers in Alabama. And then once that weekend was done, we still had a little bit left over. And I think we can make Saturday and Sunday happen for folks in Alabama. And we're excited to do it.
I want to go back to something you just said about those rough days and anglers deciding, hey, I'm not going to try it today, and staying in. And now kind of going forward in the future, where when we have these periods where we get a rough year or a rough stretch, now there's going to be some confidence there to say, you know what, if we don't catch our snapper, we're going to get more days. So there's no reason to risk and go out there and push yourself beyond the level of your equipment and put yourself or your family in a precarious position if you know, hey, we got this thing under control and we're going to get some more days if more days are deserved. It's really cool.
That's correct, because you're still really working to a certain number of pounds. So days is what, the angler wants to see. From our perspective, we're working to a number of pounds. So if you don't bring in fish that weekend, those pounds are still available somewhere, whether you get to fish them or someone else does. It does give the angler confidence that the state is going to work very hard to maximize the allocation we get, and that we're going to do what we said we would do. Last year, we had to close early because the effort was tremendous and people got to go fishing, and we got to the pounds pretty quickly. So I think the flip side of it was this year, we got to extend it a little bit because the pounds were not achieved early on in the season, and there was an increased reporting rate in Snapper Check. It was about 50%, a little higher, and that's helpful. And that also gives me a little more confidence when we're making these management decisions that we're okay with the numbers and that we're feeling better. And I think the anglers are finally learning that Snapper Check is to their benefit, that accurate reporting is beneficial to them. And I think people are learning not to panic fish. That means they're not just going because this is all we're going to get, so we have to go. And again, pushing themselves in inclement weather, things like that. They've learned to relax and that, hey, the state's going to look out for us on this. We're still going to fish those pounds.
That's awesome. I'm glad that people are using the Snapper Check, and that's 100% the reason that we've had the 2 extensions. Director Ben, we've had several questions about people asking about the licenses. Obviously, that you have to buy the new license for the second day of fishing, and again, the reef permit. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. It just happens that particular weekend, the way it falls this year, the new recreational license year starts September 1st. We begin selling the new year license on August 26th, so it's available for folks before the weekend even hits. They can go online or come to our office and they can buy their recreational fishing license for this next year. And it also starts the Reef Fish endorsement. The Reef Fish endorsement for a private angler is $10 per person, and that's for every person that is 16 or older. So it does include those who have a disability license, those that have lifetime licenses. And what it is, it's an opportunity for us to apply a little bit of funding towards our reef fish monitoring that we do. We ran out of federal money that we use to monitor the reef zone. This is going to help replace some of that, which is critical to maintaining this reef fish management. And we not only get red snapper data, we get data on other species, and I think that's going to become important in the near future, some of these other reef fish species. It's a way for those that specifically participate in that fishery to help us continue to maintain great data. The data is invaluable to maintaining a state-managed program. So it does start on September 1st. We encourage people to go ahead and buy the reef fish endorsement with their new license because it's not just a snapper endorsement. It is for any reef fish. So if you're amberjack fishing, beeliners, or any of those, you still have to have it. And you get the full year. It's a full year endorsement.
Yeah, it's going to go through that time next year. It's not like it's a tax or something on this season. It lasts for 12 months. It's the same difference as if you were buying it next May.
That's correct. If you're there buying your license, we encourage people to do it just so you don't forget about it. But our enforcement folks will be out. They're really going to educate people. You know, as they encounter folks, they're going to say, hey, have you purchased your new fishing license? Have you purchased the reef fish endorsement? We're not going to go out and write a bunch of tickets the first day. It's an education time for us to allow people the opportunity to get this endorsement and provide a little education as to why and what the benefits are. So I think it's going to be helpful also for us to have the ability to identify people that just specifically participate in that fishery, and we can put surveys out directed to them, and we can ask them questions about how did you like the type of seasons that we've been doing? What are your suggestions for the future? How many times do you go reef fishing, and get a better snapshot of the angling effort on the Alabama reef zone?
Scott, you mentioned the other reef fish. Talk to me about the management of those fish. Is there anything that the state is trying to change going forward?
Well, right now we're still working through the Gulf Council to look at some amberjack. You know, everybody looks at that pretty hard. There's some different discussions that go on through the Gulf Council process. Triggerfish has an assessment coming up in the near future. I don't think it's any secret that we're going to look pretty hard at considering those for potential state management down the road. I call it the big three: red snapper, gray triggerfish, and amberjack. But we're not quite there yet. We're asking for voluntary reporting through Snapper Check for amberjack and triggerfish. And I'm hoping that people start to see that, hey, it was working well for snapper, that we're giving them hard data. Let's do this for amberjack and triggerfish and give them some hard data, because that's how we defend our programs, is with the data.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, that's even more reason for everybody to get involved and make sure you're using Snapper Check. It sounds like participation has increased, and that's great to hear. We want 100% though, not 50%.
That's my goal too.
No reason not to do it.
No.
I mean, unless I get my tinfoil hat out, you know.
Right.
Then Scott's plotting against us. Man.
Yeah, no, I promise I'm plotting for you. It's interesting that when I have the opportunity to talk to people who have not been doing it, it still comes down to the fact that people are leery and they feel like, well, if I don't give you the number, then you just don't know about it. But we still make some estimates on effort, and we have some other ways to do that. So, you know, real numbers are real numbers, and I would rather make decisions based on that. Again, just like last year, we closed a little early, but we felt pretty confident that the effort was very, very high, and a lot of people got to go fishing. And this year, it's a similar number of trips, and you can go to outdooralabama.com and under the EFP, the Exempted Fishing Permit page, and you can see the reports that we put on there, and you can see the number of trips that are made, the number of vessels that are participating in the fishery, and it stays fairly consistent. It just was spread out a little more this year.
Well, Scott, thanks for being on with us today and explaining everything that's going on. Wish you guys continued success with this, and I hope you have a safe Labor Day weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, Butch. Well, 2 more days of snapper season, but amberjack is open right now. This time of year, You got to be looking to blue water for things to start getting really good. I like late summer, early fall. That's some of my favorite time to do some blue water fishing and really any kind of fishing. What are we doing first for a report this week, buddy?
We hadn't had Devin Potts on in a while. Let's head on down to Orange Beach, see what the captain of the Sea Mixer is doing, Captain Devin Potts. Good to have you back on. Devin, how we doing, bud?
What's going on, man?
Man, just living the dream. If I was any better, I'd be you, buddy.
Yeah, one nightmare at a time, right?
Y'all been fishing some?
Yeah, we've been doing some bottom trips. Past 3 weekends, and they do manage one day trip to the rigs. It's been good. We've been able to get out. Weather's been extremely hot. Fishing's been a little bit slow because I think the fish are somewhat lethargic because of the hot weather. Hot water. If you guys remember back in the day, always around the rodeo, you know, the snappers are spawning, and if you didn't have an ace in the hole, it seems like you had to struggle to get a limit sometimes. And so I don't think that's changed. I think that's consistent for the jacks as well.
But y'all been doing a good bit of jack fishing, good bit of scamp fishing. What's the bait situation like? I mean, we've talked about that on here before. A lot of times finding good bait is really key in this. What's it like there off Orange Beach?
The bait's been pretty thick, actually. You have to catch it on a rising tide, of course. But a rising tide, you can pretty much ease out just around the sea buoy, east side. I always like to go out there and just mark the big balls of cigar minnows and just set up shop on them and string them up. Or you can go to like a little public tank or like the Allen ship and tip a sabiki rig and catch ruby lips. That seemed to work pretty good the other day. It just all depends on what kind of bait you want, but it seems to be a pretty good variety pack across the board.
We talked with Skipper last week, and he told us that jack fishing's just been really slow. Sounds like it's the same for you guys. What do you attribute that to?
You know, I think a lot of it, like I said earlier, I think the water temperature, and obviously it's kind of, I guess the elephant in the room would be fishing pressure, but 3 weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, we were running away from them trying to scamp fish with little bitty cigar minnows and pinfish, hooking 40-pounders on random rocks, and now you go back to those same holes and you mark them, they just don't seem to bite, or maybe you get bit and the sharks kind of take over. That's been a huge problem this year for us. I mean, I speak for most of the fleet when I tell you that the sharks are fairly rabid out there right now, and I think that's also due to the water color and water quality. I think they tend to thrive in that kind of condition, so it's quite obvious when you see them on the meter what you got, you know?
Yeah. Well, what about the blue water side of things? Sounds like kind of nearshore bottom fishing is pretty slow. We got the white marlin shootout coming up this weekend. You guys going to fish in there?
Yeah, we sure are. We're pretty anxious. Tournament season itself's kind of been messed up with the weather. You know, canceled the Blue Marlin Grand Championship, and then Biloxi was a wash. I say it was. It wasn't very many boats, and we didn't fish because of the weather. And then Emerald Coast, we had to weather some pretty good conditions to fish it. It's just been one of those years where the weekends you don't have a tournament, it's calm, and the weekends you do, there's some kind of tropical depression or something like that going on. But past week or two, man, there was reports coming in and good blue water reports, blue marlins around the Blind Faith, Thunderhawk area, people catching. I mean, Pat, good night. I think he had several trips where he caught 4. Bunch of bonita, bunch of bait. You know, the bait's starting to move in, like you guys were saying earlier about the fall and late summer. Starting to see the bait fall up on the continental shelf, and I think a bonita's probably the top of the heap as far as a marlin's diet. They absolutely love them. You know, when they show up, they tend to show up in the thousands, the bonitas do, and so that tends to trickle on down to predators coming too. So
is the bonita a trophy fish?
Yeah, it is. You ever been on the bonita run?
Man, what's y'all's plan for the White Marlin Open? I don't want you to give me any details, obviously, but y'all got a decent plan. How's the weather looking?
Weather's looking awfully hot, but yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We haven't been out in quite a while, and I haven't heard of a whole lot of banner fishing that's been going on because the water's just been kind of crap up and close, where normally, like I say close, the nipple elbow. Mm-hmm. From what I'm hearing, around the 100 fathom line is where the better water is. And the further off you go, seems like there's been a line south of Independence Hub the past week or so, and it's been pretty good. It's also 140 miles, so I like to just hammer it out in there on that 100 fathom line, and usually we can pick away at the sails and the whites and scratch out at least a decent chance sometimes. You know, it doesn't have to be cobalt blue water to go fish for whites and sails here close. I mean, they don't look at their satellite report and go, well, it's blue water, I think we'll show up today. They're coming there. Right. The bait's there, they're there. I don't think they're in the cute green water. I don't know that they can stomach that too much. Plain green and blue green is, if you can't fish that, and you probably won't fish too many days over there, because it's very few days that you see blue water.
Devin, good luck this weekend, man, in the White Marlin Shootout. It sounds like it's tough out there. We've got some reports coming up here a little later that are going to echo that on the other fronts, but it does sound like it's pretty tough. It's just kind of those summer doldrums is what it sounds like.
Dog days.
When it gets tough, there are some things that you can do to increase your odds, and so we want to talk about that a little bit in this week's Offshore Tip. And this week's Offshore Tip is brought to you by Hilton's Offshore Charts and Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. Devin, you just mentioned them, but Thomas Hilton has heard what we're doing here with the podcast, and he really believes in what we're doing, and he's our newest sponsor here on the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. So we're excited to have him on. Really appreciate the sponsorship by him. But tell me about your experience with Hilton's. I mean, you're kind of a redneck and coming from South Mobile County, probably barely can read. So what's your experience with Hilton's, man? Something that technologically advanced. How do you use it? Do you just kind of point at it and maybe like bang on the side of the machine with a wrench or something?
Just take a dart and throw it at the computer and it turns blue. That's what we do, But, I'm not a very computer savvy guy. I'm not 110%. I can turn the thing on. I can tell you that much. There's a lot of settings and stuff that Thomas knows how to set the thing up and make it to where it can really read out to you. And it'd be probably worth my time to sit there with him and get that dialed in. But for me, it's just really, we can pull it up and look at some of the current. If you're out there and you like the water in one area, and the current's pushing in whatever direction, you're hoping that pretty water will follow, and then that in conjunction with the chlorophyll and the altimetry to try to find upwellings, and especially fishing open water, not like you're around a rig where there's a source there for bait all the time. Open water, you're kind of dependent on some of those features.
You do better with the picture.
Blue water, green, yeah, right. Not many letters in them, So don't confuse anything. But yeah, if it's green or a lighter shade of green, it's very simple for. Once you get accustomed to it, once you get accustomed to looking at it, it's fairly user-friendly.
You were talking about that hot water, how that's kind of slowing things down. That's one of the key things when you start talking about sea surface temperatures and being able to find these upwellings where colder water is coming up from the deep and is actually coming up to the surface. That's a great place to key in on when you're talking about fishing open water. That's one of the things that you're able to do using Hilton's. If you could find some cold water with a rig right in the middle of it, sure you'd be on some amber.
Yeah, man. Like I said, with the jacks, I think that with the snappers and some of the others, I just think it's that time of year, it's just so hot, and collectively I think everything is a little bit lethargic when you have such hot water and such hot temperatures. Mm-hmm. If Skipper's saying it's tough, then I would have to imagine that it's really tough because, we tend to have a few more rocks to fish, whereas he's got a few more rigs. Or used to have a lot more, now he doesn't have that many more. But It just seems to me to the west, the bite was always a little bit better for amberjack. And I think everything's kind of the bite for everything's kind of slowing down.
What would you tell folks that maybe they've been out and they've been struggling to catch these amberjack, if that's what they're targeting?
Well, I would say, take into consideration there's a fairly dense population of sharks in these bigger reefs. I don't care if you're fishing the marathon or if you're fishing bridge spans, whatever it is, no matter where you're at, take into consideration that there's 8, 10, a dozen nice bull sharks sitting down there waiting on them to show a little stress. You have to imagine that you're probably not the only one that's fished them. Probably got fished a day or two before you got there, if not the morning before you got there, and they may not be as likely to bite that day. I would say if you're marking them, I would come back, try them again in another day, and maybe a different scenario. I've seen it happen with us sometimes, and once you get the bite going, Butch will tell you, and you guys best know, you got to keep the train rolling. Get one coming up, get a bait going down, and that's really the tip. Outside of the sharks, you break the cycle and lose one, or you get sharked up, that's it. It's over. Might as well go to another one.
Yeah, but don't be afraid to come back to that spot next week like you're saying.
Don't be afraid to come back.
I like it, man, for sure.
So, all right, Devin, in addition to you doing private boat captaining, you sell some boats, right?
About 4 or 5 years ago, John Hopkins and I, who used to run the Gear Up, now he's running a boat named the Pipe Down. He and I kind of teamed up, and got into brokering boat sales, and kind of started out by word of mouth. It's continually grown and morphed into us staying about as busy as we can handle with it. If you've got one in mind that you're looking for, a lot of times, because we're boat captains and because we're out on the docks and because we're at the marinas, we know boat owners, we know a lot of the captains, we know the history of the boats, we know if it's been ragged out, we know if it's for sale or maybe could be for sale. And if it's a very high interest boat and the guy goes and puts it on the market, it's going to go like instantly. Most good boats are nowadays, the market's so great, most of them are going by word of mouth because of our contacts and because of our peers, and we're able to kind of find the real deal, what's going on with the boat that you're interested in, or we're also able to find you something that may not be on Yacht World.
Yeah.
And be able to approach an owner that may not be thinking about selling, but you never know. Everything's for sale.
It's a fact.
That's kind of how it is now. I mean, people want something that nobody else has got, and they want something that's not advertised and it's been on the market for several years, so on and so forth. Even though we have boats and we list them and they stay on the market for sometimes they may be overpriced or whatever. There's something about coming to somebody that's got a nice boat that's been maintained and being able to piece a deal together, and we've been really fortunate.
If folks are looking for a boat or they've got a boat that they'd be interested in selling,
yeah,
what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
They can call my number at 251-379-6005, and we can send them a listing agreement, or email me at potts.devin@gmail.com or dpotts@amyachts.com. We've got a great team. Bob Schwartz is our manager, and Bob's been around forever. And Sonny, back when Sonny was still alive, he kind of hired us and let us come on. And we don't really have a big office over here to show up to. And so we're kind of out and about, and we do most of the deals out of our truck and with the help of Bob back at the office in Mobile. And our best advertisement's been word of mouth. Most people that come to us, they come to us because they heard their friend had such a great experience. And to me, there's no better way to get your name out there than to have other people speak on your behalf.
Yeah,
that's kind of been.
Yep. A&M's been a household name for yacht sales as long as I can remember.
Well, it used to be. Boating has changed big time. And so they're still by the same values and same business dealings.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice to be able to do that. Be able to put somebody in something that they're truly going to enjoy.
Heck yeah, that's what it's all about, man.
Good luck this weekend, Devin. Thanks for being with us again.
Yeah, buddy. See you guys later.
Thanks, Devin.
Butch, it sounds like it's tough offshore, man. Devin did not seem too excited about the situation offshore.
No, I think the sharks had him a little fired up and just hot. I think he's tired of being hot.
It's hot, and you spend all that time bottom fishing. Bottom fishing is one of those things where, for me, if it ain't going off, I'm ready to
It's not that fun.
No. So it sounds like they've been working their butts off to catch what they've got, and it hasn't been that great. But maybe it'll improve, I mean, how many times have we been amberjack fishing, and it's every drop you're catching fish, you get your limit, and then you go back in, you come back to the same spot the next day and just blank out. And you have to move on. Those fish move around. I mean, you've seen it too with dolphins coming up on spots and shutting a snapper bite down. Same thing with those sharks and those amberjack. I'm curious what this hot weather and these calm seas have got things doing in the surf. We talked with David Thornton a little earlier today. He said the pier was really slow.
Yeah.
So I thought, let's go talk to Matthew Isbell, Bama Beach Bum, and see maybe the surf has improved over the pier. What's the word, man? Is it any better on the surf side?
Well, just listening to you guys talk about your previous guest, I was hoping that I could kind of carry the torch and bring in some good news, but it sounds like everybody's struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm getting depressed just talking here. I mean, I'm just kind of sad about this guy. But it's been tough. It's been tough for us too. I mean, and especially hearing that from David, that at least makes me feel better. At least it's not just me. Sometimes you feel like you're on an island out there, and you don't know if you're just sucking it up yourself or if it's the fishing. But full legend pure pounders not putting some fish on the deck, then I don't feel so bad. Yeah. What we've been running into, we have still been catching some fish. Just definitely numbers are down, bites are down. Mornings have been really tough. The last two mornings, one morning we had one bite using baits, like we were using live baits, dead baits, fish bites, everything, and we had one bite. It was a pompano, great. We kept it. The next morning I moved location to another area, and we caught a bunch of hardheads. Did have some fun. Something that we did kind of change up. We did some micro fishing, which sounds kind of lame, but it turned out to be kind of fun. We were just throwing this little crusher jig at some little juvenile pompano and whiting up close to the beach. And we caught a bunch of those, and then we kept seeing these 2.5, 3 foot sharks that were cruising and eating the whiting and baby pompano. And so we just started sight fishing some of the whiting that we were catching at them and letting them eat it. And that was pretty fun. We made best of it, trying to have a good time. But that's been the morning bite. It's just been dead or catfish. But afternoons have been a little more productive. The last 2 evenings, we've done the same thing. We've hooked up on 4 pompano and landed 3 of them. So it's pretty consistent as far as what we're seeing, but it's just kind of consistently bad. So that's kind of been the news here lately.
Well, that's a good report, really. I mean, because I don't know about everybody that listens to the show, but I kind of have to pick and choose when I go fishing. I can't go every single weekend, every day of every weekend. And if find out that maybe I need to get some honeydews done this weekend or knock some work out and kind of postpone until a better date. That's helpful to me. So it's good to hear you guys giving the real report as far as that goes.
It's got to get better eventually.
Yeah. Well, it's been good, though. Right. I mean, we've had a really good stretch of pompano fishing, and can't last forever.
It's all part of it. That's fishing.
Since there's not much to talk about right now with regards to what's happening, let's forecast a little bit. Here we are, middle of August. What do you start to expect in the next 30 days? We get a lot of folks that are listening to the show that are coming down. They're planning to come to the beach. What do you see coming up end of August, getting into September for surf fishing?
What I'm encouraged by is the pompano bite slowing down, which it's lasted longer than it should have probably anyway. And that's just, in my mind, getting me thinking that we're moving more into that early fall pattern. And what we generally see in the surf for fall fishing, early fall, late summer, is we do start to see the redfish bite kind of turn on earlier than what you're going to see in the bays and in the river systems, because most people think October for your redfish, red October, it's kind of the thing. But before those redfish are all in the bay systems and all that, we see them congregated at the passes, at the inlets, along the beaches, usually late August throughout September, before that October period of time and before you really get into fall is when we are seeing them. So the fact that the pompano are slowing down, I feel good that we're going to start seeing here soon more of those drum species, because we haven't been seeing a ton of whiting or black drum either. And usually they are all kind of together. We'll see more of the whiting. We'll see more of the puppy drum, the eater-sized black drum, along with those redfish as they kind of move into the inlet and passes and making their way into the bay systems. So I would expect September coming around here soon, end of August, we're going to have a lot more opportunity at our drum species opposed to this incredible pompano fishing that we have been seeing. It's only a matter of time. These things are cyclical, and it pretty much plays out for the most part through a cycle through the year, and that's kind of what's coming up next. And I'm excited for the change. I love catching pompano. Nothing wrong with catching pompano, but it'd be nice to see some other species hit the beach every now and then.
When the drums start showing up at these inlets and the passes and mouth of the bay there, what's going to be your go-to? What are you going to switch around tackle-wise and rigging-wise?
It's definitely a different approach, and that can be, for the surf angler, that can be a frustrating thing just because we're so ingrained pompano fishing, and that's kind of, and you catch so many other species that way. And if you continue that approach, honestly, you will still catch fish. It will still work. If you want to be a little more successful and you want to target these species, it is good to kind of change things up and change your mindset a little bit. If you want to throw artificials, this is a great time to do it, especially for your redfish. You're not going to have as much success targeting whiting or black drum with artificial, but if you're wanting to throw some smaller profile topwater lures early in the mornings and late in the evenings, I've had better success with the smaller topwaters opposed to the larger ones that you throw for your trout. So like the Spook Juniors are good ones, or even some topwater poppers. The small ones work well. If you want to throw some jigs, I like throwing gulp. It's always had a lot of success with that, like the swimming mullet or the gulp shrimp on a jig head. Even gold spoons, if you want to throw those little, I like throwing a gold spoon over a silver spoon. Don't know why. I've had more success with gold for redfish specifically. Anything like that, I would definitely focus on if you're throwing any kind of soft plastic. Scented is real important for redfish. So just changing up your approach with artificials there.
Well, Butch, Matthew's got the Hey Cap question this week. Who's the sponsor?
This week's Hey Cap question is brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather in South Alabama, just wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. That's a fact. I saw that today. But one of the things that is very predictable is the pricing at Daycool Heating and Air. They offer flat rate pricing and they don't charge for after-hour house calls. Let's face it, your HVAC always seems to act up when you need it the most. Don't get stuck between a rock and a hot place. Daycool offers flat $45 service calls, $59 tune-ups, and they offer free estimates on equipment replacement. The pros at Daycool have been serving Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade.
Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app. They are license number AL07028. All right, Matthew. Chris Hood says, Hey, Cap, what is your surf fishing strategy during a calm surf? We've had some of that this week. What do you think?
It has definitely been extremely calm. And a couple of things, I get excited if I'm getting to go fishing by myself. I love throwing artificial lures. And if I look at the surf report and I see that it's going to be flat calm, especially this time of year, because there are so many opportunities for trout and bluefish and possibly redfish. I get excited to be able to throw some top water early in the morning or late in the evening. So if it's flat calm, I'm going to be out there before sunup throwing a top water. And even if I don't catch a fish, like just watching that top water work off the surf for that flat calm on the beach on a beautiful sunrise morning, there's just something magical about it. So I enjoy it. But as far as pompano fishing, we've had a lot of really good days pompano fishing in calm surf. But what does usually coincide with it being calm is it's usually very clear. And so what we generally do is we do make everything very discreet. We're going to remove floats. We're going to remove beads. We're going to use 15, 17-pound fluorocarbon with just a hook, one drop, and we're going to use a lot of natural baits, whether that's just shrimp, just sand fleas, just ghost shrimp, whatever that may be. And it's going to be a real natural presentation, and we're going to hide that hook as best we can and just try to not spook any fish that's going to come swimming by because it's just so calm and clear. If it's been calm and clear for 5-6 consecutive days, it's probably going to be tough. The oxygen levels get real low in those conditions. The fish are just going to move out of there, and honestly, there's just not much you can do. But if it's only for a couple of days, usually you can still have some success with pompano if you just lighten things up and just think discreet.
I like that. A couple days of flat, scale it down, think clear water, but still fish. More than a couple days of flat, stay home, cut the grass, go play golf, do something else.
Yes. I
like it. Well, Matthew, if folks want to get in touch with you for a surf fishing trip, what's the best way to contact you?
They can check me out on my website. It's staybummy.com. That's STAYBUMMY.
All right, buddy. As always, thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Last but not least, let's get the inshore. I think it's kind of a hybrid report today. Let's see what Captain Richard Rutland's doing with cold-blooded fishing. How are we doing today, Captain Richard?
What's up, boys? How y'all doing? I hope everybody's line's been tight this week. I know mine sure have. Been doing a little bit of inshore and a little offshore. Looks like inshore fish are starting to move up the bay a little bit, which makes sense with white shrimp migration. That usually happens about this time of year. And then offshore, we got amberjack going on, and I've been fairly successful at both.
Awesome, man.
Well, I did a little bit of offshore fishing today. I went down to the island this morning to kind of do a little bit of, a scouting or / fun trip, and was kind of prepared for all things trout, doing like some trout or redfish or blackfish, or running offshore and doing some ling fishing or amberjack fishing. And man, it was, instead of the Gulf of Mexico, we should have called it Lake of Mexico today, because it was calm today. Golly. We went and tried to catch up some bait out around the ships, which has been a pretty sure thing, and kind of found a little bit of a dead area out there around the ships, which is surprising, and went to the east and fished the triple yellow rig. That's about 9 or 10 miles off Gulf Shores. Got some good hardtails, and went out to a fairly new reef that the state sunk, I believe, last year, called the New Venture. It's a giant ship that they put out there that they sunk. It really marks up good, and it's a big structure. We caught our limit of amberjacks pretty quick. I had just me and my buddy Jimmy Tran, JC, with me, went out there, and I think we used about all of six live baits, and had two probably 40-plus pound amberjacks on the boat, two undersized fish as well. It was great. It was a fun trip.
That big spot, how did you guys approach that spot? Did you just get up current and drift? What was your strategy there? Did you try to hold on a specific number?
Well, there was zero current whatsoever. I probably never needed to put the trolling motor in the water, but I did. I just kind of idled around with my trolling motor down, and then when I started to mark the fish, because you could definitely see the wreck. The wreck marks up about 30 or 40 feet off the bottom. It is giant. Usually you can tell where those amberjacks are, because they usually school pretty tight together, and they usually give you like a real hard return in the water column at one depth. When I found that, I spot locked with my trolling motor, and we measured out our hardtails right down to them, and it was pretty much like clockwork, really easy for the most part. And first big fish that we hooked up on, we kind of got the boat angled away from the wreck, pulled them away, because it's such a big structure. It's fairly easy for them to get you wrapped up in there, but I feel like, and we both did a good job on two keeper-sized fish and got them away. We're using real heavy lines, 6/0 Penn Senators with some 100-plus pound line on there, circle hooks and whatnot. It was a lot of fun, man. I love that whole tug-of-war deal you got to do with those guys.
Oh, yeah, but it's a little different for you there. You don't get to do that. You don't get to pull in those big guys very often.
No, that kind of takes me back to my childhood. That's what me and my dad and my brother used to love doing when we were growing up, was doing amberjack fishing. Like back when there used to be a ton of rigs out there in the Gulf, that was our deal, was like you'd hook up and then kind of power away to get them, you know?
Oh, yeah, get them up out of there. Well, you talked about the trout and all moving up a little bit more up in the bay. I'm going to pick your brain a little more about that because I've been trying to find those guys some. What's that pattern looking like?
So I've been basically fishing from about Theodore Industrial Canal, Dog River area, and north. We found some real nice schools of, I wouldn't say like any great big fish, but nice schools of what we call schooling fish, 1 to 3 pound fish or so, in shallow water and deep water, just kind of littered up. Mostly I've been doing it on the west side of the bay, west side of the ship channel, from Gilliard Island all the way up to just south of the Mobile River. A lot of times you got to weed through the hardhead catfish and stuff like that, ladyfish. On some of the shallow water, I guess you'd say, they're mostly oyster shell flats or around some old dot pilings and stuff like that. But it's been mostly a popping cork and a live shrimp. It's been really hard to catch fish on artificial lately on the trout side of things. They've gotten a little weary of the artificial bait, but it's been really good. Like I was saying, I think it's a sign of the white shrimp pushing north in the bay towards the tidal rivers to do their spawning deal that they usually do here in the late summer, early fall. It seems like all the white shrimp go up in the tidal rivers and the delta and whatnot and do their spawning activity. And I think we're kind of already seeing signs of that happening.
Yeah, for sure. Jay and I were able to get out a couple days ago. Jay Williamson with Killer Dock, and we found the same exact thing. West side of the bay, nice, what I call schoolie trout. Those nice ones that are fun to catch, but they would not touch a voodoo. You could not get one to touch anything other than a live shrimp. So I feel you on that.
Yeah, that's just this time of year they get a little weary of those artificials for some reason. I don't know what the deal is with that, but you got to have bait right now, that's for sure. Which breaks a lot of people's heart, including mine. But like I always tell people, I'm into giving them what they want. So if they want live shrimp, I'm gonna have live shrimp.
Ain't no doubt about that, buddy.
Richard, I've been stalking you online. I kind of just lurk behind the scenes and keep an eye on what you're doing. I noticed you.
That's creepy.
Yeah, I like to I like to keep it creepy. Just always know I'm watching you, Richard. Just keep that.
That's right. Apparently.
I've seen some photos of some really nice cobia you've been catching. Tell me, we're not going to let you get out of here without telling me about those cobias.
Ling fishing has been good. I would say, as far as like getting into my ling pattern, I call them ling because I'm from Alabama. I don't know where you're from, but I'm from Alabama, so I call them ling. We're getting real close to it busting loose, in my opinion, minus what I saw today. I felt like we're getting real close to seeing them start to kind of bust loose. Caught a few fish on the outer buoys, the outer ship buoys on the ship channel, and then a lot of fish out on the ships right now. It's been fun. Mostly been catching them on live pogies. One big one that we caught about 2 weeks ago was on a dead pogie of all things, believe it or not, on a knocker rig, something you would catch a red snapper on, a knocker rig, just a weight down on top of a circle hook. Caught a real nice one doing that, kind of just fluttering it all the way up the water column, working the bottom all the way up to the very top of the water column. It caught a real nice one. Then we sight casted a nice one on a buoy the other day. Like I said, I don't think it's quite full swing for full bore fall fishing link, but it is looking good, in my opinion, for it to really bust loose here for too long.
I always personally look for right around Labor Day, give or take 2 weeks. It seems like that's when those fish show up in some numbers. And, if I go back and I listen to our shows last year, I believe that's when you were really on those fish, right around that Labor Day holiday. When you're fishing those buoys, you mentioned sight fishing that fish on a buoy. Are you running buoys and looking, or do you spend the time to actually slow down and use your electronics and see if you can find a fish stopping at each buoy?
I scan every buoy possible. I definitely scan with my side scan because you never know where you're going to find one. If you don't use your electronics, you're behind the 8 ball. And it's funny with electronics and how I've evolved as a ling fisherman. I used to stop and fish every single buoy. I used to stop and jig every buoy or drop a live bait on every buoy or pitch a free line or something like that. And I've gotten to where now I visually inspect each buoy, make a very nice slow approach with the sun at my back, so I have good light and I can see the surface real well. If I don't see anything, then I'll make a real slow approach, and I usually either go up current or down current, but I want to be parallel with the current when I'm going. So if the current's coming out of the west, I'm going from east to west, scanning the buoy because fish is always going to have his nose into the current. And I'll do just a real slow idle by the buoy, inspect with my side scan. If I see something that looks fishy, if I see something looks like it's hanging off the chain, go to town with a jig, or basically like a sow rig, like you'd use for a snapper, a weight with about a 4 to 6 foot long leader and or knocker rig, and then just kind of start working the water column. Most of the time with your side scan and whatnot, you can usually tell about what depth fish are at. You can just kind of almost measure out your live bait right down to them and catch them. It's pretty neat.
Well, it sounds neat. I'm ready for them to show up. That's one of my favorite fish. Maybe more than triple tail, maybe right behind. Depends on the day, maybe. But it's exciting. This great time of year. And everybody starts thinking about football. So the boats thin out. Everybody's running up to the hunting camp, plant their food plots, and just a lot less pressure out there.
There's nothing to see down here. Everybody needs to go make sure their food plots are in good working order, and that Bambi's in there. It's eating every day, man. That's where everybody needs to be.
That's the important thing right now.
That's exactly right.
Well, Richard, we're not going to let you get out of here without giving us a tip. This week's onshore tip is brought to you by CCA Alabama, a great way to support conservation projects like the Claude Petit Flounder Hatchery and the University of South Alabama cobia tagging project. That's got to be tough to tag a cobia. I just don't know if I could do it. Anyway, the South Alabama cobia tagging project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama Saltwater Fishing License Plate. Head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page, revenue.alabama.gov, to get yours. Richard, have you been able to tag a few cobia, or you struggle with that as much as I would?
Personally, I do not have any cobia tags.
Right, that's my excuse too, yeah.
Yep. I don't have any cobia tags, but the good news is South Alabama and the CCA we're going to work together here in the next couple of months to put some satellite tags on a few fish.
Cool.
Which is going to be neat. Crystal Hightower and I, with the Sea Lab, have been practicing tagging dead fish, and we've got plans to practice tagging some live fish, and then we're going to kill the fish. I know that sounds kind of funny, but we're going to tag the fish in the water, and then we're going to kill the fish and make sure that tag placement is correct before we go and actually put a tag, because those tags are quite pricey.
That makes sense.
So we're going to do a little practicing, and then I think we're tagging 6 ling this year. So that'll be pretty neat. We got that coming up. But as far as a tip, something I ran into today was I went out to the ships to catch bait first thing this morning. The particular ship that I started on, I know it's been there for a couple of days, and it should have had lots of bait around it. And it had 0 bait around it, and I scanned the whole thing with my electronics, and I could not find any signs of life around the ship, which blew my mind because I was just out with Butch's brother Skipper Saturday, which is only 4 days ago, and we caught bait to go offshore around the same ship. And so it kind of puzzled me a little bit, but my advice, my tip is to, even though I didn't catch any fish around it, I'm going to keep going back and trying, I'm not going to completely write that area off. I think we've got a few things going on right now. We've got all this west wind and southwest wind we've had. There's a lot of water coming out of the Mississippi River and out of the Mississippi spillways. And I feel like some of that water has traveled over, and it's obviously pushed the bait somewhere else, and obviously pushed the ling somewhere else as well. But I'm definitely not going to give up on it. Looks like we've got a little bit of a change in forecast here Friday, and then on into next week, maybe we're going to get a different wind direction. Hopefully, I've got my fingers crossed. But like I said, my tip would be just not to give up on it just yet. Just because you go out there and you fish a couple of times around one of these ships, don't give up on it, because they're going to be there. It's the right time of the year. You just got to look for the signs. You follow the feed, find the fish. Even though the feed's not there, doesn't mean that they won't be there the next time you go. I feel like this water quality is definitely pushing the bait around right now.
Well, Richard, if folks want to get together with you and do an inshore trip or do one of these hybrid trips like you talked about doing today, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? Are you going through Fishing Chaos now, or are you still booking trips yourself?
I am on Fishing Chaos. Fishing Chaos is a great way to book a trip with me. You can go online. You can see all my availability. There's a link on my website at coldbloodedfishing.com. That'll take you right over to Fishing Chaos. You can pay your deposit, communicate with me directly straight through Fishing Chaos. A great tool.
That's a cool thing those guys got going on over there, man.
I agree.
All right, Richard. Well, thanks again, buddy. As always, we appreciate having you on and you giving us a report. We'll be checking back in with you soon. Stay safe.
Sounds like a winner, man. Y'all have a good one.
All right, Captain Richard. Keep whacking them. Talk to you soon.
Butch, what did you learn today?
I think if I take anything away from this week's show, it's kind of tough right now. everybody's kind of struggling. Bait's here one day, gone the next. Just stick it out. It's going to change. It's going to get better eventually. Just keep watching the wind patterns and the currents. Like Richard was saying, the Dead Sea out there with that west wind coming out, all the river water and the low oxygen and all that, it's going to change. As soon as we get a east wind for a couple days and all that, it's going to get better. So either stick it out or like you say, just stay home. Go plant your fields this weekend so that way when the fishing's good, you can get after it.
Man, make your wife happy, make your spouse. Sorry, that was very sexist of me to say that. I know we got women that like to fish too. My wife's one of them. But do something for your spouse. Get ahead. That way when it changes, you're ready. Build up some brownie points right now. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up. As always, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you're following us over on Facebook at Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. And if you'd like us to email you the podcast, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. Chris Hood is going to be getting the CCA CDEC Fish Ruler this week for his Hey Cap questions. So if you guys have a Hey Cap question, there's 2 ways to submit it. Email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com, or you can go over to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report Facebook page and look for one of our posts there. If we select your question, you'll be in the running for the CDEC Fish Ruler. What else we got, Butch?
I think that's it, man. Keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999.
And also, Killer Dock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at killerdock.com. That's killerdock.com.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo DiPaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
This is Captain Richard Rutland, and this report is brought to you by Cold Blooded Fishing. You can find us at www.coldbloodedfishing.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.